Problematics of Budgeting During Pandemic Situations, a paper prepared by Elona FEJZAJ, Albana, GJONİ and Etleva MUÇA. A short introduction. The government may be able to reduce disaster losses beyond reductions achieved by private action if it is better able than individuals to assess and manage exposure to disaster risk. Budget prepared for this purpose help in planning the company's activities. A budget is a comprehensive plan that contains information about the acquisition and use of resources for a given period of time and is a quantitative expression of management's future action plan. Budgeting in disaster and pandemic situations. Disaster financial management activities. The complexity of managing funds from different programs requires extensive subject matter expertise. There are some initial post-disaster activities. Initial cost recovery begins concurrently with response operations and is typically completed within weeks of an incident. And there are some long-term post-disaster activities. Jurisdictions should continue good disaster financial management practices throughout response and recovery. Many critical financial management activities must be completed during the initial recovery effort, but some activities occur later in the recovery process. Budget problems during the COVID-19 pandemic in Albania, comparison with the Balkan countries. Albania entered the COVID-19 crisis immediately after the devastating earthquake in November 19. The spread of COVID-19 in Albania was even harder. 71% of firms in Albania reported a drop in demand, which is less severe than in Greece and Moldova, comparable to Italy, Georgia and Bulgaria, and worse than Slovenia and Croatia. Employment adjustments in Albania have been very widespread. 28% of firms reduced the number of permanent workers, a much higher percentage than in Greece, Italy, Moldova and Croatia, but comparable to other countries. The differential impacts on employment may have been partly related to the structure of the government's COVID-19 support packages. Methodology of the study, methods and materials. In this research, the relationship between the crisis management steps and the planning, programming and budgeting system was examined. A statistical population of this study is 60 managers of power plant sector in our country. To assess the validity and reliability of research variables, the questionnaire used tested the variables. First, the selected variables were translated, and then, referring to the elite, the necessary corrections were made. The strength of the relationship between the factor variable and the observable variable is indicated. The factor loading is between 0 and 1. If the factor loading is less than 0.3, the relationship is considered weak and is withdrawn. Factor loading between 0.3 and 0.6 is acceptable, and more than 0.6 is highly desirable. Based on the results of the measurement model, the factor loading observed in all cases is greater than 0.5, which indicates that there is a good correlation between the invisible variables and their latent variables, as well as based on the results of the measurement model. The bootstrapping sum, T statistic, in all cases is greater than the critical value, 1.96, which indicates that the correlation between the invisible variables and its latent variables is significant. Analysis and results. The relationship of the variables studied in each research hypothesis was tested based on a general structure with the partial least square technique. In the general research model, measurement model, the relationship of each observable variable and with the hidden variable, and the path model were calculated. To test the significance of relationships, the T-statistic was performed, calculated with the bootstrapping technique. The intensity of the effect of crisis management and programmed budgeting was calculated to be 0.525, and the test probability statistic was also 5.430, which is more than the critical value at the 5% error level, and shows that the effect observed is important. Therefore, with 95% confidence, crisis management has a positive and significant effect on the program budgeting of the power plant sector, and the main hypothesis is confirmed. The intensity of the effect of pre-crisis criteria on crisis management is calculated 0.409, and the test probability statistic is obtained at 13.485. The intensity of the effect of crisis management and program budgeting was calculated 0.425 and the test probability statistic was obtained at 5.430. All calculations related to the analysis of direct pass and sub-pass were made by Smart PLS software and presented in a table called Table Effects. In conclusion, this study investigated the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic on the budgeting process in various states that were affected by this emergency, including Albania. For this purpose, an analysis was examined through the SPSS program, which through the established variables helped in reaching the conclusions and recommendations of this paper. Based on the results of the measurement model, the factor loading observed in all cases is greater than 0.5, which indicates that there is a good correlation between the latent variables and their latent variables as well, based on the results of the measurement model. Alignment with the management and accounting literature and empirical testing of the aviation sector provides also a contribution to crisis management practice and fills a lack of empirical testing in the crisis management literature. Budgeting underlies the management of most organizations, and this research provides evidence for its use in increasing the effectiveness of crisis management. Therefore, this research fulfills its purpose of providing a deeper understanding of crisis management and a contribution to crisis management research and practice. However, it is difficult to forecast the future, but governments, especially those in developing countries like Albania, have started to be more attentive and careful in managing eventual disaster situations. Thank you.